poetry, there's short fiction, there are essays, there's all the anguish is poured out through music and through literature. And the written word, and it's not just the written word. I have come across, the oral literature also. Oral literature, we are very rich in oral literature. And many songs, many chants of lamentation, which are not written down, but chants of lamentation about those who have gone missing, those who are presumed dead. But this is even a fate worse than death, I would say, there's no closure for the family members because they don't know for certain. We are small societies. And so when somebody goes missing, we know somebody who knows somebody, and we share that anguish. And the poets, the singers, there's a lot of songs also about, this kind of anguish. And the thing about literature is that good literature, I'm not saying all literature, but good literature is, it's not judgmental. It takes into account the literature that we see now. It speaks of the anguish of the perpetrator. It speaks of the anguish of those who are left behind after there's a killing. It speaks of the anguish of the mother who's lost a son, a wife, a daughter, a son. It speaks of that. It speaks of what happens. And it's not just fiction. I know books that are written about, for instance, there's this beautiful book which I was co-editing about those women who are now heads of households because the men have been killed. The men are only photographs on the wall. And what happens? What happens after, how do you continue? How do you bring up the children? And what do you do when the breadwinner is just a photograph on the wall? And often these women they never came out of the four walls of their house, and suddenly, we know, for instance, the bomb blast in Guwahati about 8 or 9 years ago. There were sudden widows, there were sudden, it was very random. People who were killed, it was very random. People who were left without children, people who were left without parents, spouses, so many things. So that anguish comes through. How much can you protest? How much can you go to the courts? But it comes through in the art, in literature, in music, in painting, in poetry, so on. Our friend Robin, who is here, he will be, I'm sure, reading out the anguish of this kind of conflict in Manipur. Anupama is here from Guwahati, poet. There are other poets also. They will be speaking about that. So I am eagerly waiting to listen to them. I'm sure you will also benefit so much. We will all benefit in hearing from them. Was there anything else?
No, you answered the first part. And just to add to what you said, and to add to what Rubara said about seeing both sides. So one of our famous writers is somebody called Sri Hare Krishna Dekka, who was a policeman. He was DGP of the state. But he writes beautifully. And there's this one short story of his I remember. I don't remember the exact title. Yes, translated by, I think, Katha into English. Yes, where an insurgent has kidnapped a person. And this is his hostage, and there's his keeper. And they are moving from village to village, trying to evade the authorities. And there's a big manhunt on. There's this whole net which is being cast to find this victim. And the strong emotional bond that develops between the abductee and the abductor. And it is so tender. It is so moving, that story, where you see, at one point, the hostage being concerned about the kidnapper. That, is he okay? Is he all right? That sort of emotion it's such a swing of emotion, a seesaw of emotions going through the Northeast. It's really quite heartbreaking sometimes. And it's expressed beautifully in fiction. Short stories particularly, I find, address it better. And of course in poetry and novels too. Yeah. But to go on to the second part, I'd like to ask both of you, and chip in myself, is that we don't necessarily have to write only about this, because life goes on. And in my short stories and in my novel, I'm trying to say what Mitra Baidu said, that I'm not just from the Northeast, I'm also me, the many layers to me. And I write because I'm a writer. So eventually, we don't have to write only about that. So what motivates you? What's your impulse when you write, Ruboda? We've been talking for a long time.
Jahnavi, before I talk about myself, I slightly, feel self-centered that way. But then with Apurva, Saikia sitting here, and some of our very distinguished, Northeastern writers, I'd just like to mention for the audience, just to also test my memory. In Nagaland, we have, will you allow me that, Jahnavi? Nini Lungalang, Susan Watton, Istidin Iralu, they have made some Mona Zote was read out by Lakshmi ma'am a while back, but we have the famous James Dokuma. He's a legendary person who was an underground himself during the Mizo insurgency, surrendered and turned to be a novelist and a short story writer. He lived through his writings. In Shillong, we have a beautiful group comprising 4 stalwarts. We also have Esther Siem, we also have Strimlet with us. But then Robin Nangom, Kinfam Singh Nongkindri, Desmond Kharmoflong, and Ananya Guha, who is here among us, they have also contributed tremendously. Now, the difference is this between the hills and the valleys, is that the hills are dependent upon the English language for their writing. But in the valleys, in Manipur, in Meitei is the language through which some of the finest novels and the short stories have been written. A few of them have been translated. In fact, Mitra Baidu's book, the first book, which is a classic, according to me, called The Collector's Wife, was very competently translated to Manipur into the Meitei language. We also have in Arunachal Pradesh, which is not very keen on English, but they take Assamese as the mode of communication to write. And some of the finest writings have come out in Assamese through Arunachali writers. And that same goes in Sikkim, which is also under the Northeast Council. They write in Nepali, and they have got, if awards are an indication of your excellence, then very many Nepali writers in Darjeeling and in Sikkim have got several awards, which are often not quoted. And then if you come down to Tripura, in Tripura, the lingua franca basically is Bengali because of the influx post-1947. But then there is an indigenous language called Kok Borok. It's called Kok Borok, and Kok Borok has been firmly established now as a very powerful medium by which some of very fine stories and novels and poems have been in. One example of whom Chandra Murray. Sorry. I think I'm talking so much, even the microphone is feeling bad about it. But then, it's the Northeast, which is very close to my heart, so it is, I'm speaking like that. But about the original question that Jahnavi had asked about writings as such in the Northeast, and whether there are at all, I think, about insurgency writing. Mitra Baidu's first book was on the insurgency, not on insurgency as such. It was on the Assam agitation. It was a 6-year-long agitation that said that wanted all illegal migrants to be driven out of of Assam or the Northeast. It was based on that. We have an award-winning writer called Aropa Patangya Kolita, who has written beautifully, strongly. She's a Sahitya Academy Award winner on insurgency. We have several of these, but the point is this: what Jahnavi was saying, we have tremendous lot of writings on romance, on hills. Please don't mind if I quote one example of my own. My second book of collections is called Luck. There are 9 stories, and they are all to do with animals or birds. It's about a dog, about vultures, about a rhino. So it's not necessary that we stick only to violence. Jahnovi's book of short stories, Next Door, it's about everyday life. It's about a grandfather taking care of the grandchild, small, beautiful stories having great universal appeal. So I don't think that insurgency or violence has become the leitmotif of Northeastern writers. We have gone over that period, and now we are into a kind of arena where we are perhaps happily in tandem with Southern writers, if Shiny will allow me that to call you a writer from the south of India, Shiny. I'm sorry for that.
It's interesting, somebody mentioned in between about the hills being dependent on English. It's not just the hills, I think English in the Northeast has a special place. So much so that so many of us are writing in English today. And like C.S. Lakshmi said today, that once you write in English, you're always questioned. Why? Why aren't you writing in Assamese? Why aren't you writing in Assamese? Why aren't you writing in Khasi? But English in the Northeast has a special place as a link language because of the so many other languages present, because of the medium of instruction, the Christian schools which taught us English. And so much so that I think it's the only place in the country which has something called the Northeast Writers Forum, a platform which is dedicated mainly to mainly English writing, because they all felt that the vernacular writing has enough support, has always been very strong, powerful, and may it live long. But English in India has almost become an Indian language, and we need to support it. So we have two founding members of Northeast Writers Forum sitting here. We have lots of members in the audience. I'm a failed member. I don't pay my fees regularly. But I'd like to ask them what inspired them to create that platform. It is a massive platform, and it has actually linked and connected writers from all the 8 states. They have marvelous meetings, outings, general body meetings. They invite writers from outside. It's quite a spectacular organization. Any one of you who wants to speak first? And after this, I'll do something unusual, send the mic to the audience, to our Northeast writers sitting at the back, and they can chip in too, because they should also be heard. So one of you or either of you, and both, speak on Northeast Writers Forum.
I think Mitra Bhai, you'll do a better job. Okay, I'll do it. Jahnovi was speaking about the Northeast Writers Forum. Back in the early 90s, there were many of us writing in English. And whenever we wrote in English in the local dailies or the magazines, or even in the national magazines where we had contributed, there was a feeling of, apology. As if writing in English was, you have to do it, on the sly. You were not very confident. Why English? Were we being elitist? Were we being Paka Sahabs? And were we down to the root? Did we smell the grass the way regional writers smell? Did we converse when our dialogues were involved? Did we exercise those dialogues the way the Assamese writer wrote, or the Meitei writer, or the Missing writer, or the Bengali writer, or the Punjabi or Telugu writer? One fine day we decided we will not apologize. We said we'll write in English because it may not happen to be my mother tongue, but it is my first language. This is what Mitra Bhai once